Sunday, June 2nd, 2019, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today I want to talk about the hubris or arrogance of the central bankers and the globalists and publications like The Economist, which of course is a globalist tool. It's owned by the Rothschilds. And before I go further, yes, I'd like to tell the viewers, especially my new viewers, that one of the objectives of my channel is to expose, the fraudulent central banking system, the fact that it creates moral hazard, it gives subsidies and a backstop to bankers, and it's all backed by us, by the general public. They inflate the monetary system at our expense through inflation. They create money out of thin air. They have a monopoly. And it's an institution that should not be around in a free society where we have free markets and the rule of law. I think it's totally goes against all the things that have made the West, as developed as it is, in spite of the fact that we have had central banks in the US for the last 105 years. Unfortunately, in Europe, it's been longer. And that's one of the reasons why, as well, if you want to contribute to the channel, you can go to the description below. I've got links to my Teespring store, and you can buy one of these. It's like an End the Fed mug. It says, robbing Americans since 1913, End the Fed, at Maneco 64. On the other side, I've got home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Or you can buy just a Maneco 64 mug or a Billy mug. Billy, by the way, is in the other room. He's with my wife. They're watching a bit of TV. I thought I'd do this video here in the living room. So this won't be a long video. I'm going to try to shorten my videos a little bit, see how that goes. Yeah, so what's The Economist talking about? Before I go through an interesting article they have about central banking, I want to show you these adverts, in The Economist for jobs. It's executive focus. And look who's hiring. The BIS, the Bank for International Settlements. Another very shady institution. It was created by a treaty by the major Allied countries after World War I in 1930. I would say it's a private bank. We don't know who owns it, but it's the bank for the central bankers. It is based in Basel, Switzerland, but it's actually a supranational institution. It's like the Vatican. The officers of this bank, they have diplomatic immunity. The Swiss police cannot go in there or investigate anything. So it's totally above the law, this bank, the BIS. It financed both sides of World War II. And I recommend The Tower of Basel by Adam Libor, where it's all documented. The people from the Reichsbank, the representatives from JP Morgan, representatives from the Bank of England, representatives from the Bank of France, Bank of Japan, they were all working together during World War II. So with the anniversary of D-Day coming up, 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings. Yes, it was a horrible event. A lot of people died, but it makes you wonder, was it just a game for these guys? But anyway, the BIS, they think they're going to be around for a long time, and my hope is that they won't. Well, they're hiring the BIS. I'm not going to be applying for any of these jobs. Probably wouldn't get it anyway. It says Chief Representative, BIS Representative Office for the Americas, Mexico City, Mexico. So the BIS has an office in Mexico City. I guess it's all that I don't want to say what it is, all that money flowing into Mexico, all the, you know what. Senior economist, economics and financial markets for Asia and the Pacific, Hong Kong, SAR. I guess SAR means semi-autonomous region. That's what Hong Kong is. So they're hiring Mexico City, Hong Kong, BIS, Head of Communications, Basel, Switzerland. Head of Communications, I guess they're going to try to hire someone to, it's a propaganda office, we would say, because hopefully more and more people, the general public, wake up to this shady institution that needs to be closed down. It will only be closed down by a national treaty, I would say. But the original intent of the BIS was to be a bank to settle after World War I, we had the reparations that were imposed on Germany, the losing Germans. And that's what it was founded for, this bank. It was founded so that they could settle the post-war World War I reparations. But as it is with the globalists, they always have other intentions. They created this bank and they, by now the reparations aren't been paid anymore. They should have just closed it down. But no, they're using it for something else to further their globalist agenda. There's an article here in their leaders section about central banks, and it says, think bigger, right? Think bigger. So I'll go through it a little bit here. It says, to equip themselves for the next recession, central banks face a delicate task. So you can see that this is a globalist institution because they don't even ask the question whether we really need central banks. Central banks just help accentuate boom and bust cycles. I know that in a system where we don't have central banks, we will still have a lot of irresponsible activity by speculators, by lenders, but it won't be as accentuated because the bankers will not have in the back of their minds think, oh, if anything really happens systemic, they'll come to the rescue. They'll be the lenders of last resort. And I think that's the worst thing, really. So what's it say here? So I'll read from The Economist. It says, it has been a decade since America's latest recession, and it has taken that long for the Federal Reserve to ask itself whether it is ready for the next one. On June 4th, officials and scholars will gather in Chicago to debate how monetary policy should work in a world of low interest rates. So I'll stop there. That's the other fallacy, the world of low interest rates. It's the world of manipulated interest rates, because I think that's what the central bankers have done. And that's what QE is about. QE has been effected in order to keep interest rates low. So they're printing money to keep interest rates low, to keep this Ponzi going. So what else do they say? The benchmark rate is 2.25 to 2.5, which gives the Fed little room to cut before hitting zero, and less than half as much as it has needed in past downturns. So they're arguing, they're trying to get people to think, oh, maybe the Fed needs to do something more, right? This is what it's all about. They're talking about how the ECB as well has its hands tied a bit more. So what do they say here at the end? It says the Federal Preserve. If the reforms are inadequate, the result could be a long and ruinous slump. Avoiding that fate is worth the risks. What risks do central bankers take? They create, money or credit out of thin air. They're like God. They don't have any risks. We bear all the risks. Central banks should thus swap their inflation targets for something better. We favor a target to nominal GDP, a measure that is more closely tied to the fortunes of debtors and investors. Notice So what's this targeting of GDP? Well, basically it's forgetting about inflation, which is not really inflation, right? Because they've been inflating forever by creating money and credit. What they're talking about is the measure of inflation, the CPI. They're just saying, forget about it. We'll keep it, we'll manipulate that number to zero. And all we do is print as much money as possible in order to keep GDP at a certain level. That's what they're talking about. And it's crazy in my opinion. Notice that they don't talk about debtors and savers. You see, they're not, you as a saver, you're like a third-class citizen. You need to be a debtor or a speculator. That's what they mean by investors. Wall Street, the private equity groups, the hedge funds, and they should reach for new sources of monetary ammunition. Well, central bankers have only one ammunition, that's money printing or credit creation. Politicians will inevitably play a part in the choice of such innovations, and rightly so. Well, I thought central banks are supposed to be independent. Because they set the framework for the technocrats. What is more, the necessary work will take sustained effort, not a single meeting. The bankers should not be cowed by the threat of politicization. Their work is too urgent and too important for that. I'd say that's rubbish. Their work is not important and it's not urgent. Their work is evil and unnecessary in a free market economy. And is it a surprise, that we see the economists talking about this, going towards like more and more money printing, forgetting about inflation and focusing on GDP in order to keep debtors and speculators or investors in the green. Is it any wonder then that the BIS is advertising for a head of communications? My hope, of course, is that the next crisis, that people wake up and actually demand for the abolition of the central banks. I would think that if the Fed was abolished or ended, that would set the tone for the rest of the world. We can only hope. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. You can also follow me on Twitter, Steemit, and on DTube. I wish you a great rest of the weekend. Take care. Bye.